the idea of optimization is, well, everybody knows what optimization is, right? You try to find the best way to do something, but there's always some limitations on what you can do. Those are the constraints. And within the constraints, you have a whole bunch of different things you could do. You want to pick out one way which is the best. And to say what best is, you have to define some objective function that measures goodness. And in many business situations, it's clear that that's a profit or a cost. This work was done by one of my colleagues. His office is on the 3rd floor. His name is Jim Dyer. And starting around 1990, not sure now, maybe 1995, he worked with some U.S. Atomic Energy Agency to try to help them decide on how they would dispose of excess plutonium. They had thousands of plutonium pits, which are somewhat smaller than a bowling ball. Okay? And these things are going to be radioactive for a long time, and naturally you don't want people to get their hands on those things. So there were many different proposals for disposing of them, and they all had their pluses and their minuses. Let's see what it says here. The OR solution. What was the OR solution? Both the US and the Russian governments applied multi-attribute utility models. I'm not sure why that has question marks in front of it, except you probably don't know what that means, so maybe it's appropriate. The multiple attributes were all the different properties that the different proposals had. Some of the things they wanted to achieve were that the disposal methods you'd never be able to get at the stuff. That's non-proliferation. And also in transporting the pits to where they would be disposed of, there was supposed to be little chance that they could be stolen. Operational effectiveness has to do with cost, among other things. And environment, safety, health. You don't want this stuff to get out. Sub-goals included theft avoidance, preventing government diversion of plutonium for unauthorized purposes. The Russians needed to be sure that we were really disposing of it, and we needed to be sure that they were. Later on, by the way, Dyer did this for the Russians, too. And there's a paper on that. So they ended up with 37 criteria for assessing 13 plutonium disposal alternatives. And then the question was, how do you decide on which one, or maybe you would choose a few, would be chosen? Okay? So you needed some kind of scoring system, some way to assign a score so that the highest score ended up winning. But the scoring had to account for all these different criteria that measured, the good and bad points of these different methods. I will show you the software that Dyer used to do this. And you can use it to choose your next job, or to buy a car, or a computer. Okay, that'll come in a minute. Okay, and I think this paper, you can actually get the full paper off of this website by clicking on the right link. So that falls under the heading of decision analysis. We've already done these things, so let's see, what do I have on my next slide? Okay, let's go back here. Aviation, Continental Airlines. So this work was done by another colleague who has gone off to work in industry, but he was with us from around 96 to 2004. His name is Gang Yu, and starting about maybe 4 years before 9/11, he began working on problems that airlines had in recovering from disturbances. You've all been caught in some of these disruptions, right? And this summer, there was a whole bunch of them. Flights get delayed, there's storms, mechanical failures, and especially as our airports get more and more crowded, we have even more of these problems. So he developed an OR-based system for Continental, which helped them reallocate their crews when flights were delayed. You know, delays have a way of propagating. If a flight going into Dallas is delayed, then the crew and the pilot, if they have to go on another flight, well, they're not there to go on it. So even if the plane is there, it can't take off. Okay, so unexpected events including bad weather, aircraft mechanical problems, crew unavailability. When this happens, crews may not be in position to service their remaining flights. So you have to reassign the crews quickly to cover open flights. So what was the OR solution here? Okay, at this time, the company was called Caleb Technologies. Since it's been bought out, and the company is called Navitaire, Navitaire. They have a website too, and that's listed in my slides. I don't think we have time to go there, but they have a lot about this stuff on that website. On 9/11, kind of a huge disruption occurred when all the flights had to land, you know, wherever they happened to be when they flew into the towers. And given the availability of this system, Continental was able to reschedule their crews and reallocate their planes and get back into business maybe 2 or 3 days earlier than most airlines. Okay, and that meant tens of millions of dollars to them. And of course, they continued to operate the system because, you know, there are other kinds of disruptions like weather delays that happen all the time. And if you click this link, and I'm hoping that some of you will be interested enough to do that, you come to this paper, which is the full story of what they did and how they did it. Okay, and you notice that this is an Austin address. I think they're still there. And this comes from a journal that's called Interfaces. Okay, this was January, February '03. Every January and February, Interfaces is an Informs journal, and every year at this time, they publish a special issue with 5 or 6 applications which were judged the best of the year. And one of them is the winner of what's called the Edelman Prize, after a famous OR guy of many years ago. And that is an excellent source of information about OR in practice.